The rain hammered Portland City Hall, steps like ammunition on steel. December rain, the kind that soaked through leather and chilled to the bone. The kind that made sensible men seek shelter. Damon Sutherland wasn't going anywhere. 6 police officers formed a semicircle around him, hands resting on holstered weapons. Red and blue lights carved through the darkness, painting everything in shades of violence and consequence. Behind Damon, pressed against his back, a woman trembled. Not from cold, from fear that had lived in her bones for months. Lieutenant Morrison stepped forward, rain streaming off his campaign hat. 20 years on the force showed in the weariness of his voice and the reluctance in his movements. "Sutherland, step away from the woman, now." Damon didn't move, his hands remained visible, palms out, empty. The leather vest bearing the Hells Angels patches hung heavy on his shoulders, soaked through. Water dripped from his silver-streaked beard. His eyes, dark as the storm above, never left Morrison's face. "Not happening, Lieutenant." A Mercedes S-Class sat 30 feet away, engine running, headlights cutting through the rain like searchlights. The driver's door opened. Garrett Pierce emerged, immaculate in a suit that somehow repelled water through sheer expense. An assistant held an umbrella, keeping him dry while everyone else drowned. "He's kidnapped her!" Garrett's voice carried courtroom authority. "I want him arrested immediately." Morrison's hand tightened on his weapon. Damon saw it, calculated. Distance, angles, odds. Marine training never left you, even 12 years after you hung up the uniform for the last time. "Isla," Damon said quietly, not turning his head. "Tell them." The woman stepped around him, small, maybe 5'6", red hair plastered to her skull by rain. Green eyes that had seen too much pain but still held defiance like a shield. She looked at Morrison, then at Garrett, then back to the lieutenant. "I'm here by choice." Her voice shook, but the words came clear. "This man saved my life." The screen went black. White letters appeared, 30 days earlier, December 15th, 2025. The pre-dawn darkness of December 15th held the promise of snow. Damon Sutherland's boots hit the hardwood floor of his bedroom at precisely 0600 hours. Not because an alarm woke him. His body didn't need alarms anymore. 20 years in the Corps and another 20 in the life had trained his internal clock better than any device. The master bedroom of the Sutherland estate spread around him in shadows and half-light. 800 square feet of personal space in a house with 8,000 total. Too much room for one man. Everyone said so. Tucker said it weekly. The brothers at the club said it monthly. Damon said nothing and changed nothing. He moved through his morning ritual with mechanical precision. 100 push-ups, no pause, no rest. Just steady, rhythmic movement until his shoulders burned and sweat began to bead despite the cold. Then 50 more, because discipline wasn't about stopping when it hurt. It was about continuing after. The shower ran hot enough to fog mirrors. He stood under the spray and let it work the stiffness from his back. 48 years old. Some mornings he felt everyone. Other mornings he felt like the 20-year-old kid who'd signed up for the Marines because staying in Portland, working construction for his drunk father, seemed like dying in slow motion. By 0630, he sat in the kitchen, coffee mug in hand, Wall Street Journal spread across the granite island. The kitchen could have fed 20, usually it fed one. The coffee was black. The news was recycled concerns with different names and slightly modified crises. His phone buzzed. Text from Wrench. "Garage 3, stock issue, need your eyes." Damon typed back, "Video call, 10 minutes." He owned 5 Sutherland auto locations across the Portland metro area. Started with one garage 23 years ago, built with money saved from Marine paychecks and dawn shifts at a competitor's shop. Now they employed 73 people. Generated revenue that would make his father's drunken predictions of failure seem even more pathetic than they'd been when Damon was 18. The video call took 7 minutes. The stock issue was simple. Wrench already knew the answer. He just wanted confirmation. Damon gave it and ended the call. His coffee had gone cold. He drank it anyway. On the windowsill above the sink sat a small wooden box, handcrafted walnut with brass hinges. Inside, wrapped in velvet, a Marine Corps ring, engraved on the inside, "To my warrior, love, Lisa." Damon picked it up, turned it in the early light. The weight was familiar, comforting and painful in equal measure. 12 years. Some days it felt like yesterday. Other days it felt like a lifetime lived by someone else. He placed the ring back in its box and closed the lid with a soft click that echoed in the empty kitchen. By 800, he was on his Harley-Davidson Road King, heading toward the Hells Angels clubhouse in southeast Portland. Morning traffic was light. Cold kept the fair weather riders off the road. Cold never bothered Damon. He'd spent 2 winters in Bosnia where the thermometer dipped below zero and stayed there for weeks. Portland December was tropical by comparison. The clubhouse sat in an industrial area near the river. Converted warehouse, chain-link fence, security cameras that actually worked unlike most of the decorative systems people installed. The lot held maybe 20 bikes. More would arrive throughout the day as brothers finished their shifts and obligations. Inside smelled like coffee, motor oil, and old leather, the scent of continuity, of tradition. Viper sat at the main table, reading glasses perched on his nose, reviewing spreadsheets with the same concentration he'd once used reading maps in Vietnam. "Morning, Reaper." Viper didn't look up from the numbers. Viper. Hope Haven numbers look good, real good. Damon poured coffee from the industrial pot that was always full and never quite fresh. "We cleared 500,000 in donations this year. That's 500,000 reasons Lisa would be proud." The name hung in the air like smoke. Viper was one of maybe 3 people on Earth who could say it to Damon's face and not get silence in return. "Yeah," Damon said quietly. "Hope Haven Community Center, built 12 years ago with Lisa's life insurance money and Damon's determination to keep a promise made to a dying woman. Named for her last words. Operated on the principle that everyone deserved a second chance, even if they'd wasted their first. It served 200 families a year. Provided food, shelter, job training. Hope, when hope seemed like a luxury no one could afford." Damon ran through the monthly report with Viper. Numbers and logistics, facts and figures. 20 minutes of business that kept the center running and families fed. When they finished, Viper closed his laptop and looked at Damon over his reading glasses. "You're living like a ghost, brother. I'm honoring a promise. Promises got expiration dates, even the sacred ones." Damon set his empty mug down carefully. "Not this one." Viper nodded slowly. He understood. The Marines taught you about promises, about duty, about seeing things through even when every fiber of your being wanted to quit. The club reinforced it. Brotherhood meant keeping your word even when your word cost you everything. "Just remember," Viper said softly, "living ain't the same as existing." Damon left without answering because there was no answer to give. The day passed the way most days passed. Phone calls about businesses. A meeting with a real estate developer who wanted to build condos near one of the garages and needed Damon's property for parking. Damon said no. The developer offered more money. Damon said no again. The developer left angry, threatening lawyers. Damon had lawyers too, better ones. By 1600 hours, he was back at the estate, checking email and returning calls from an office that overlooked the back acreage. Through the window, he could see the private lake in the distance. In summer, it reflected the sky like polished glass. In December, it looked gray and cold, and exactly like he felt most days. His phone rang. Not a text. An actual call. Tucker. "Yeah. You busy?" Tucker's voice carried that particular tone that meant he wasn't asking if Damon was busy. He was warning that he was about to make him busy. "What do you need?" "Nothing, just checking in. Been a week." It had been exactly a week. Tucker called every Monday like clockwork. Had for 12 years. Ever since the funeral when he'd found Damon sitting alone in this empty house. Lisa's engagement ring still in his pocket, trying to figure out how to keep breathing. "I'm good," Damon said. "You're existing. That's different from good. Viper already gave me this speech today." "Then maybe you should listen." Tucker paused. "Want to grab dinner?" "Can't. Gotta run to Seattle. Business meeting." "On a Monday night?" "Time zones work different for money that doesn't sleep." Tucker sighed. Damon could picture him in his office, surrounded by case files and surveillance photos. Private investigation work suited Tucker the way the Marines suited Damon. Both of them had needed structure after they got out. Both of them had found it in different places. "Just don't forget you're human, brother." Hard to forget when you keep reminding me. That's what big brothers do. They ended the call. Damon sat in the silence of the office and watched the lake turn from gray to black as the sun set behind the western hills. The meeting in Seattle ran long. By the time Damon pointed his Road King south on I-5, it was past 2200 hours and the rain had started. Not the light mist that Oregon called rain 9 months of the year. The heavy pounding sheets that turned highways into obstacle courses and made visibility a prayer instead of a guarantee. He'd planned to make Portland by midnight. Instead, he pulled off at a rest stop near Olympia to let the worst of the storm pass. 15 minutes turned into 30. 30 turned into an hour. The rain showed no signs of stopping. At 23:15, he got back on the bike and headed south anyway. 30 miles outside Portland City, limits the rain intensified. Water on the road reflected oncoming headlights like mirrors. His hands, even in gloves, felt stiff from cold. The smart move was to find a hotel. Damon kept riding, then he saw the diner. Rosie's sat just off Highway 26, one of those places that had probably been there since the 50s and looked every day of its age. Neon sign buzzing in the rain. Half the letters worked. Roadside Diner. The parking lot held maybe 4 cars and a pickup truck that looked older than Damon. He pulled in under the overhang by the front door, killed the engine, sat for a moment listening to the rain hammer the metal roof above him. Coffee, maybe a burger. 20 minutes to warm up and then finish the ride home. The bell above the door chimed when he walked in. Every head in the place turned, then turned back to their food when they saw the vest. Most people, when they saw the Hells Angels patches, made one of 2 choices: aggressive engagement or studied indifference. Smart people chose the second option. The interior of Rosie's looked exactly like its exterior suggested: worn linoleum, faded booths with duct tape repairs, counter with spinning stools that had seen better decades, coffee that smelled like it had been brewing since the Reagan administration. A waitress in her 50s approached with a pot and a tired smile that had served 10,000 customers. "Coffee, honey." "Please, she's there." "Sit anywhere. Kitchen closes in 20. Damon headed for a booth in the back. Marine habits. Never sit with your back to the door. Always know your exits. Always position yourself where you can see threats before they see you. That's when he noticed her. Corner booth, far side of the diner. A woman, maybe 30, sitting alone. Burger in front of her, mostly untouched. Fries gone cold. And the posture, shoulders hunched forward, head down. The universal body language of someone trying to disappear into the upholstery. Damon's trained eye cataloged details without conscious thought. No wedding ring. Tan line where one used to be. Clothes a size too big, the way they hung on someone who'd lost weight they couldn't afford to lose. Teacher's tote bag on the seat beside her. Kindergarten supplies visible. Crayons. Construction paper. Laminated name tags. The worn look of someone who'd been sitting there too long with nowhere else to go. And on the table in front of her, coins. Quarters. Dimes. Nickels. Pennies. Counted and recounted with hands that shook slightly. Damon looked away. Not his business, not his problem. He had enough of his own. The waitress brought coffee. He ordered a burger. She left. He pulled out his phone and checked emails he didn't care about while the rain continued its assault on the windows. 10 minutes later, the manager appeared. Bob, according to his name tag. Tall, thinning hair, the kind of exhaustion that came from running a failing business in a failing economy with staff who called in sick and customers who complained about prices that barely covered costs. Bob walked to the corner booth, stood over the woman. Damon couldn't hear the words, but he could read the tone in Bob's body language. The woman's head came up, fear in her eyes. She said something. Bob shook his head, pointed at the check. The woman gathered her coins, some fell, rolled across the table, hit the floor with tiny metallic sounds that seemed too loud in the quiet diner. Bob's voice rose, not quite shouting, but close enough. "This isn't a charity, ma'am. Either pay the full amount or I'm calling the sheriff." The woman stood. The coins clinked back into her purse. She grabbed her bag, headed for the door, moving fast, not running, but close. And Damon Sutherland, who'd spent 12 years keeping his word to a woman who died on a highway, asking him to help people, who'd built a community center that served hundreds, who understood what it meant to have nothing and need everything, made a decision. He stood. The sound of his boots on the linoleum made Bob turn. The woman froze halfway to the door. Rain hammered the windows. The other customers pretended not to watch while watching everything. How much does she owe? Damon's voice carried the weight of command. 30 years of Marines and motorcycle clubs taught you how to make words land like physical objects. Bob blinked, recalculated. 28.75. Damon pulled his wallet, laid 3 20s on the counter. That covers hers and mine. Keep the change. Bob looked at the money, at Damon, at the woman by the door. Then he took the bills and walked back toward the register without another word. Damon turned to the woman. She stood frozen, one hand on the door handle, eyes wide. Fear and confusion fighting for dominance on her face. He kept his distance, kept his hands visible, spoke quiet. You're coming with me. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. I can't. You can't stay here. Damon gestured at the storm beyond the windows. And you can't walk in that. I have a guest room. Safe, separate, your choice. But standing in this doorway debating it won't change the weather. She looked at him, really looked, at the leather vest with its patches that marked him as something society taught people to fear, at the beard and the tattoos and the size of him. 6'3", 230, a man built for violence even if he hadn't used it in years. Then she looked at the rain, at the cold darkness beyond the diner's windows, at the nothing she had waiting for her out there. Okay, she whispered. The ride through the rain felt like something out of a fever dream. Isla Brennan, kindergarten teacher, recently divorced, current owner of exactly $2.35, sat on the back of a Hells Angels motorcycle while a December storm tried to drown them both. She'd wrapped her arms around his waist because he'd told her to hold on tight, and she was too terrified to do anything else. The leather of his vest was slick with rain under her fingers. The engine vibrated through her entire body. Water hit her face like tiny fists. But his back blocked the worst of the wind. His bulk created a pocket of relative calm. And somehow, against all logic and reason and common sense screaming in her head, she felt safer than she had in months. The ride lasted 20 minutes. Could have been 2. Could have been 200. Time lost meaning somewhere between the highway and the private drive marked by a sign that read, Sutherland Estate, private property. The driveway wound through tall oaks for what felt like forever. Then the trees opened up and Isla saw lights. A house. No, not a house. A mansion. 2-story colonial. White columns, wraparound porch. Gardens even in December showing the kind of care that required professional maintenance. The kind of place that belonged in magazines about wealth and success. The kind of place that sure as hell didn't belong to a biker who'd picked up a stranger at a dying diner. Damon killed the engine under a covered parking area. The sudden silence felt overwhelming. Isla's hands, stiff from gripping his vest, wouldn't open immediately. He waited, patient, until she managed to let go and climb off the bike on shaking legs. He dismounted with the ease of long practice, took the helmet from her hands gently, set it aside, then looked at her with those dark eyes that seemed to see everything and judge nothing. Welcome to my home. The front door opened onto a foyer that belonged in a different world. Hardwood floors polished to a mirror shine, a staircase that curved up to the second floor with a banister that gleamed with fresh oil, crystal chandelier catching the light and throwing it in 1,000 directions, artwork on the walls that looked expensive because it was. Isla stood dripping on the floor and tried to reconcile the mansion with the man. Failed, tried again, failed harder. This is yours? The words came out before she could stop them. Built it 10 years ago. Damon moved past her, comfortable in the space in a way that proved ownership more than any deed. Promised someone I would. A biker who lives like this? I'm also a businessman. Started with 1 garage. Now I have 5. He grabbed a towel from somewhere and handed it to her. Bathroom's through there if you want to dry off. I'll get you some clothes. He disappeared upstairs before she could respond. Isla stood in the foyer with a towel in her hands and her entire understanding of reality questioning itself. She'd gotten on a motorcycle with a Hells Angel. He'd brought her to a mansion. Nothing about this made sense, but she was inside. Warm, dry, alive. She used the bathroom. It was larger than her old apartment's bedroom. Marble counters, rainfall shower, towels thick enough to use as blankets. She dried off as much as possible, then stared at herself in the mirror. Red hair plastered to her skull, no makeup. Dark circles under green eyes that had cried too many tears lately. Clothes hanging loose because she'd lost 20 pounds after the divorce. The look of someone who'd given up without quite realizing they'd done it. A knock on the door. "Close outside when you're ready," Damon's voice came through the wood. "Guest room's upstairs. Second door on the right." She waited until she heard his footsteps retreat, then opened the door, found a neat stack, sweatpants, t-shirt, thick box files. All new, tags still attached. In the guest room, she changed into clothes that were too big but warm. The room itself was another shock. Queen bed with a thick comforter, dresser, private bathroom, window seat overlooking the dark grounds. Everything clean, everything ready. As if someone maintained this space for guests who never came. On the dresser, a set of car keys on a Mustang keychain. She picked them up, turned them over. The weight of them felt significant in a way she couldn't name. Another knock. She opened the door. Damon stood there, changed into dry clothes himself. Jeans, black t-shirt. The tattoo sleeves on both arms were fully visible now. Intricate work, military symbols mixed with motorcycle club imagery. And on his left forearm, in elegant script, "Lisa, forever and always." "Those are for the Mustang in the garage." He nodded at the keys. 67. "Restored it myself. You're free to leave any time. Middle of the night, dawn, whenever, your choice." Isla stared at the keys, at him. "You're giving me keys to a classic car?" "I'm giving you freedom. The car's just the vehicle." "Why?" The question hung between them. Damon's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. Some old pain surfacing before being pushed back down into whatever deep place he kept it. "Because someone should have helped you before it got this bad. And because I made a promise a long time ago to help people who needed it. You need it. You don't know anything about me. I know you were counting change to pay for a burger. I know you're running from something. I know you're scared." His voice stayed gentle, matter of fact, not judging. "And I know what it's like to have nowhere to go. So yeah, I know enough." He turned to leave, stopped, looked back. "Lock works from the inside. Kitchen's downstairs if you're hungry. Coffee maker's automatic. There's food in the fridge. Help yourself to anything. I'm down the hall, last door. Knock if you need something." Then he was gone. Isla stood in the doorway of the guest room, keys to a 67 Mustang in her hand, wearing a stranger's clothes in a mansion that belonged to a Hell's Angel, and for the first time in months felt something other than despair. She felt confused, terrified, overwhelmed, but not alone. She closed the door, locked it, climbed into bed without turning off the light, and fell asleep to the sound of rain on the windows, while somewhere in this impossible house, a man named Damon Sutherland kept a promise to a woman who'd been dead for 12 years. Morning came with weak winter sunlight filtering through curtains Isla didn't remember closing. She woke slowly, confused about where she was, then remembered in a rush that made her sit up fast. The clock on the nightstand read 9:47 a.m. She'd slept 10 hours. When was the last time she'd slept 10 hours? For the diagnosis, before Garrett's face had gone cold, before everything fell apart. The smell of coffee drifted up from downstairs. She found her clothes from yesterday folded on a chair. Dry, still wrinkled but wearable. She dressed quickly and stood at the guest room door listening. Silence. No movement. Maybe he'd left. The house felt even larger in daylight. She made her way downstairs, following the coffee smell to a kitchen that could have serviced a restaurant. Commercial-grade appliances. Island workspace that could seat 6. Windows overlooking gardens that even in December showed careful maintenance. Damon stood at the stove, his back to her. Cooking. The smell of bacon and pancakes filled the air. He'd showered, hair still damp, jeans and a thermal shirt. The Hells Angels vest hung on a hook by the door like a uniform after shift. Without turning around, he said, "Coffee's fresh, mugs in the cabinet above the pot." Isla poured coffee with hands that trembled slightly. The kitchen felt warm, safe, surreal. "How do you take it?" Damon asked, plating food with the efficiency of someone who'd cooked for himself a long time. Black. He nodded. Set 2 plates on the island. Pancakes, bacon, scrambled eggs. More food than she'd eaten in days. They sat across from each other. The silence stretched, not uncomfortable, but charged with unasked questions. Finally, Isla spoke. I should explain. Only if you want to. You let me stay in your house, gave me keys to your car. You deserve to know who I am. Damon cut into his pancakes with methodical precision. What I deserve and what you owe me are different things. You don't owe me your story. But she told him anyway, because the kindness hurt worse than the cruelty had, because someone was finally listening, because she'd been holding it inside so long that the words came out like poison finally being purged. 8 years of marriage. To Garrett Pierce, lawyer, 34, ambitious, from old Portland money. Started out good. Started out with promises, kids, house, family, the American dream wrapped in prenuptial agreements and career trajectories. Then the diagnosis, endometriosis, severe, the kind that made pregnancy unlikely. Possible in theory, but unlikely in practice. They tried anyway. 3 years of trying, of temperature charts and timed intercourse, and the slow death of spontaneity. Of negative pregnancy tests and Garrett's face getting harder each time. Until one morning he looked at her across their kitchen table and said, I can't do this anymore. I need a real family. Real family. As if she wasn't real. As if her body's failure made her less than human. The divorce was quick. He had lawyers. She had guilt. The prenup left her with nothing. The teaching job ended because depression made her miss too many days. The apartment went when the money ran out. Her car broke down on the way to Seattle where her sister lived. Her sister, who hadn't answered calls in 3 months because Isla had become too much weight for anyone to carry. She told Damon all of it, watching his face for judgment, for pity, for the look Garrett used to give her, the one that said, why can't you be normal? Damon's expression never changed. He listened. He ate. He poured more coffee. And when she finished, when the words finally ran dry and she sat there shaking with the release of it, he spoke quietly. Man who leaves over that isn't a man. I couldn't give him children. You didn't fail, he did. At being human. Damon's voice carried certainty, not comfort, fact. Worth isn't measured by what your body can or can't do. It's measured by what you do when everything goes wrong. You're still standing, still fighting. That's worth. Isla felt tears threatening. Push them back. I don't feel like I'm standing. You rode through a storm on a stranger's bike. You slept in an unknown house. You're sitting here telling me things that hurt to say. That's standing. That's fighting. He stood, collecting plates. And you're going to keep standing. As long as you need. Here, this house, you're welcome to stay. I can't impose. It's not an imposition. It's a choice, my choice. I'm offering. The sound of a vehicle in the driveway cut off her response. Big engine, aggressive, moving fast. Damon's posture shifted, not quite tense, but alert. He moved to the window and looked out. That's my brother. Your brother? Tucker, he's protective. This might get loud. The front door slammed open. Heavy boots on hardwood. Then a voice, sharp with concern and anger mixed together. Damon, who the hell is she? Tucker Sutherland filled the kitchen doorway like a storm front moving in. 6'1", maybe 200 pounds of lean muscle and controlled aggression. Buzz cut showing gray at the temples. Cargo pants, tight t-shirt, the subtle bulge at his hip that meant he was carrying. His eyes locked on Isla, then swung to Damon. The air in the kitchen changed, became charged with something dangerous. Damon, who the hell is she? Damon stayed at the sink, rinsing dishes with deliberate calm. Guest, Isla, this is my brother Tucker. Tucker, Isla. Tucker didn't acknowledge the introduction. He moved into the kitchen with the controlled movement of someone who'd spent years in situations where sudden motion meant death. Army. Isla could read it in his posture, the way he'd automatically positioned himself where he could see both her and the doors. Guest. Tucker's voice dripped skepticism. You don't do guests. You haven't had anyone in this house since. I know how long it's been. Damon's tone carried warning, still quiet, but edged with something harder. So what changed? She needed help. Tucker's laugh came short and bitter. That's your answer? She needed help? He turned to Isla. Where are you from? What do you want from my brother? Isla stood, legs shaking. Nothing. I don't want anything. I'll leave. Sit down. Damon's voice stopped her mid-motion. Not harsh, but absolute. He dried his hands on a towel and turned to face Tucker fully. Outside, now. The two men stared at each other. Some silent communication passing between them that Isla couldn't read. Brotherhood language. Then Tucker nodded once and headed for the back door. Damon followed. Through the kitchen window, Isla could see them on the deck, Tucker's hands moving as he talked. Animated, angry, Damon standing still, arms crossed, letting his brother vent the way you let pressure bleed from a system before it exploded. She couldn't hear the words, but she could read the body language. Tucker was scared, not of her, for Damon, the way he kept gesturing back toward the house, the way his voice rose and fell in waves of frustration and concern. And Damon, stone-faced, taking it, until Tucker said something that made Damon's jaw tighten. His hands dropped to his sides, fists clenched. The argument lasted 5 minutes. Felt like 5 hours. Finally, Tucker threw up his hands and walked back inside, past Isla without looking at her, straight to Damon, who'd followed him in. I'm running a background check. Tucker's voice had gone flat. Professional, the investigator, not the brother. Full workup. If I find anything, then you find it. Damon met his brother's eyes. But while you're looking, you treat her with respect. She's under my protection. That means something. Tucker's jaw worked. Then he nodded. Looked at Isla for the first time since the interrogation started. Really looked. Some of the anger left his face, replaced by something that might have been guilt. Ma'am? He nodded once, crisp, military. Then to Damon, I'll call you. He left the way he'd come, fast, purposeful. The house felt quieter after he was gone, but not peaceful. The echo of tension lingered like smoke after fire. Isla remained standing, hands gripping the back of the chair. I should go. I'm causing problems between you. Tucker's protective. We lost our parents young. Car accident when I was 19, he was 23. Drunk driver hit them head on. Damon returned to the sink. Started washing the dishes Tucker had interrupted. He thinks it's his job to save me from everything, including caring about people again. Again? Damon didn't answer immediately. His hands moved through the soapy water with mechanical efficiency. Washing, rinsing, setting dishes in the drainer. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of old pain carried so long it had become part of him. Woman I was engaged to, Lisa, 12 years ago. She was driving to meet me. Drunk driver hit her car head on. Highway 26. She died at the scene. He paused, stared out the window at nothing. After that, I locked myself away. Built this house. Grew the businesses. Helped people at Hope Haven. But I kept everyone at arm's length. Tucker thinks I'm doing it again, taking in strays to avoid dealing with the fact that I'm still alone. Are you? Maybe. He dried his hands, turned to face her. But you still needed help. And I still made a promise to someone who's gone that I'd help people who needed it. So Tucker can run his background check. And you can stay as long as you need. Isla found she was crying with realizing when it started. Silent tears that came from somewhere deeper than sadness. From the place where gratitude and grief mixed together until you couldn't separate them. Thank you, she whispered. Damon nodded, said nothing, gave her the gift of silence to collect herself. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, stared at the screen, felt her blood go cold. You okay? Damon's voice sharpened, reading her reaction like reconnaissance. It's Garrett, my ex. He's never called since the divorce. The phone stopped buzzing, started again immediately. Isla let it go to voicemail, stood there shaking while the device felt like it might burn through her palm. When it finally stopped, she played the message on speaker. Garrett's voice filled the kitchen, smooth, confident. The voice that had once promised forever and then delivered divorce papers. Isla, it's Garrett. I know you're probably surprised to hear from me. I've been doing a lot of thinking. About us. About what I said. Amanda left me. Turns out she was more interested in the prenup money than the marriage. Ironic, right? He laughed, short, bitter, without humor. Anyway, I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. We could try again. Adoption, surrogacy. There are options. Call me back. Please, we can work this out. The message ended. Silence crashed back into the kitchen like a physical force. Isla's hands trembled so badly she nearly dropped the phone. Her breathing came short and sharp. The kitchen started to spin. She grabbed the counter for support and felt her knees beginning to buckle. Then Damon was there, not touching, just present, close enough to catch her if she fell, but giving her space to breathe. 4 counts in, his voice came steady, calm. The voice of someone who'd talked people through panic before. Hold it. 4 counts out. With me. In. 2. 3. 4. She tried to follow, failed. Tried again. Her lungs felt like they'd forgotten how to work. You're okay. You're safe. Focus on my voice. In. 2, 3, 4. It took 5 minutes, maybe 10. Eventually her breathing slowed. The panic ebbed. She found herself sitting on the kitchen floor with her back against the cabinet. Damon sat across from her. Not crowding. Just there. He only wants me back because his new life failed, Isla said when she could speak again. I'm a backup plan. You're not a backup plan. What if I am? What if that's all I'm worth? Damon leaned forward. His eyes caught hers and held them. Look at me. Really look. You're worth more than he'll ever understand. His failure to see it doesn't change it. His need for you now doesn't validate you. You were already whole, already valuable. He was just too blind and too selfish to realize it. Isla wanted to believe him, wanted it so badly it hurt. But Garrett's voice was still echoing in her head. The promises, the apologies, the same words he'd used 8 years ago when he'd promised forever. What if he means it this time? Does it matter? Damon's voice stayed gentle, but certain. Even if he means it, that doesn't erase what he did, what he said, how he made you feel. You don't go back to someone who threw you away just because they decided they want you back. He stood, offered his hand. She took it and let him pull her to her feet. I need to make a call. Damon headed for the door, stopped, looked back. You're safe here, Isla, however long you need. That's not changing. 3 days passed. Isla existed in a strange limbo where nothing felt real but everything felt safer than it had in months. Damon went about his routines, checking on garages, managing properties, attending club business. He never pressured her to leave, never made her feel like an imposition, just went about his life while she tried to figure out how to restart hers. On the 3rd morning, he appeared in the kitchen where she was attempting to make breakfast as a way to contribute something, anything, to the household. I want to show you something. He drove the Mustang, the 1967 beauty that he'd restored himself and given her the keys to without hesitation. She sat in the passenger seat and watched Portland roll past the windows. Familiar streets, familiar city, everything the same except her. They stopped at a building in a working-class neighborhood, single story, fresh paint, sign out front, Hope Haven Community Center. This is it, Damon said, what I built with Lisa's life insurance money, what I promised her I'd create. Inside smelled like coffee and fresh bread. The main room held maybe 40 people, families, single parents, elderly folks, veterans, all ages, all situations, all sharing the common denominator of needing help and finding it here. A woman in her 50s approached, warm smile, capable hands, the look of someone who'd been helping people so long, it had become muscle memory and calling both. Damon, good to see you. Sarah, this is Isla. Sarah runs the day-to-day operations here. Sarah's handshake was firm, assessing without being judgmental. Welcome, you here to volunteer or be served? The question could have been offensive. Instead, it felt honest, direct. Isla found herself appreciating it. I don't know yet, Isla admitted. That's okay, most people don't when they first walk in. Sarah gestured around the space. We serve about 200 families a year. Food assistance, job training, temporary housing, mental health resources, whatever people need to get back on their feet. Damon had moved away, talking to a veteran in worn fatigues. Isla watched him crouch down to be at eye level with the man, listening, not fixing. Not, just present in a way that said, "You matter." A child ran past, maybe 5 years old, tripped, started to cry. Without thinking, Isla moved, scooped the kid up, checked for injuries, found scraped palms, nothing serious. "You're okay," she said automatically. Teacher voice coming back like muscle memory. "Let's get you cleaned up." The bathrooms had first aid supplies. Isla washed the scrapes gently, applied bandages with cartoon characters, the whole time talking to the little girl about her favorite color, her favorite toy, anything to distract from the sting. "There, all better." "Thank you." A woman appeared, early 30s, exhausted eyes that had seen too much too young. 3 kids total visible now. "I'm Delilah, that's Mercy." "Isla, just happened to be here." "Nothing just happens at Hope Haven." Delilah smiled, tired but genuine. "You're good with kids." "I was a teacher, kindergarten." "Was?" The question hung there. Isla could deflect, could lie. Instead, she found herself telling the truth because this place seemed to demand truth. "Lost my job, long story, depression. I wasn't functioning well." Delilah nodded slowly, understanding in her eyes. "I get that. I was a bank teller before my husband started hitting me. Lost everything when I ran. Been here 2 months. Sarah's helping me find childcare so I can interview for jobs." She paused. "It gets better, slowly, but it does." By the time Damon found her 3 hours later, Isla had read to 6 kids, organized a supply closet, and helped serve lunch to 40 people. Her hands stayed busy. Her mind stayed quiet. For the first time since the diagnosis, since the divorce, since everything fell apart, she felt useful. "Ready to head back?" Damon asked. "Can I come back tomorrow?" Something in his expression softened, pride mixed with something else she couldn't quite name. "Yeah, you can come back tomorrow." That night, Isla lay in the guest room and thought about Delilah, about Sarah, about the veteran Damon had talked to, about all those people finding ways to keep going when everything said they should quit, about herself, and what keeping going might look like. Her phone buzzed. Text message. "Garrett. Isla, please respond. We need to talk. I made mistakes. Let me fix them." She stared at the message for a longer time, then deleted it without responding, turned off her phone, and slept without nightmares for the first time in months. Tucker met Constance Webb at a coffee shop downtown on a gray Thursday afternoon. She was 60-something, gray hair pulled back with ruthless efficiency, eyes that had cried until they couldn't cry anymore but still held determination like a weapon. She carried a laptop bag like it contained something precious, which it did. "My Thomas didn't steal that money." Her first words after sitting down. Not hello, not pleasantries, just desperate certainty carried for 6 months. He wouldn't, he couldn't. "Tell me about him," Tucker said. The story spilled out. Good kid, scholarship student, worked his way through law school waiting tables and doing night security. Got hired at Morrison and Pierce despite not having the pedigree they usually required. Worked 80-hour weeks, believed in justice, believed the system worked if you worked hard enough. Then 6 months ago, the accusations. 3 million missing from client trusts. Evidence pointing to Thomas. Bank accounts in his name. Signatures that matched his. Transaction records that showed a pattern of theft spanning 2 years. Thomas maintained his innocence, but the evidence was overwhelming. The firm fired him. The state bar opened an investigation. Criminal charges were pending. Then he died. Single gunshot, note saying he couldn't live with the shame of what he'd done. He didn't write that note. Constance pulled papers from her laptop bag with trembling hands. "This is his handwriting, real samples. Look at the letter formation. The pressure, the spacing." She laid the suicide note beside them. "This is different. Similar but different. Someone forged it." Tucker studied the documents. She was right. The differences were subtle, but they were there if you knew what to look for. And Tucker knew what to look for. "Why didn't you bring this to the police?" "I did. They said I was a grieving mother who couldn't accept the truth. That handwriting analysis was inconclusive, that my son had fooled me just like he fooled everyone. Tears welled but didn't fall. But he didn't fool me. I knew my boy. He didn't steal. He didn't kill himself. You think someone framed him? I know someone framed him, and I think I know who. She pulled out more documents, emails, printed and highlighted. Thomas to his mother, sent 2 weeks before he died. Mom, something's wrong at the firm. I found discrepancies in the Pierce accounts. When I reported them to Garrett, he told me I was mistaken. But I'm not mistaken. The numbers don't add up. I'm going to keep documenting. If anything happens to me, these emails are your evidence. Tucker read through them. Careful documentation, account numbers, transaction dates, patterns of money movement that didn't make sense unless someone was hiding something. And all of it flowing through one name, Garrett Maxwell Pierce. Your son found evidence of embezzlement. Pierce was stealing from clients. Thomas discovered it. So Pierce framed him and then killed him to make it look like suicide. That's what I believe, but I can't prove it. I'm just a mother. No one listens. Tucker photographed everything with methodical precision. I'm listening, and I have resources you don't. Give me 2 weeks. I'll get you proof. Constance Webb looked at him with eyes that wanted to hope, but had been disappointed too many times. Why are you helping me? Because my brother made a promise to help people who need it. And because if Garrett Pierce did this to your son, he's dangerous. He needs to be stopped. Tucker's office sat above a gun range in East Portland. The sound of controlled gunfire provided constant background noise. Most people found it unsettling. Tucker found it comforting. Reminded him of simpler times when enemies were clear and missions had defined objectives. He sat at his desk, surrounded by 3 monitors, running searches that would make most civilians uncomfortable with how much information you could buy if you knew where to look. Isla Catherine Brennan, 30 years old, born Portland, parents deceased, 2015, car accident. One sister, Emma, currently living in Seattle, estranged for reasons the records didn't explain. Education records clean, teaching credentials current, 7 years at Bridgeview Elementary. Excellent performance reviews until 18 months ago. Then a decline, missed days, complaints about engagement, finally resigned rather than face termination. Marriage certificate to Garrett Maxwell Pierce, dated 8 years prior. Divorce finalized 4 months ago. Prenuptial agreement heavily favored Garrett. Isla left with essentially nothing. Medical records were harder to access, but Tucker had contacts who had contacts. He found the diagnosis: endometriosis, severe, fertility unlikely. The timeline matched the decline in her teaching performance and the disintegration of her marriage. The woman was exactly what she appeared to be, someone who'd gotten beaten down by life until she had nothing left. Tucker picked up his phone, dialed Damon. Yeah, she's clean. Everything checks out. I know. Then why did you let me run the check? Damon was quiet for a moment. Because you needed to, and because trust is earned, not given. Even when your gut says someone's okay, you verify it. You taught me that. I was wrong about her. You were protecting me. That's not wrong, just misplaced this time. Tucker pulled up another screen, started typing. There's something else, her ex. What about him? Garrett Pierce, 34, senior partner at Morrison & Pierce. Big firm, handles corporate litigation. High-profile stuff. Connected. Tucker scrolled through the information with growing concern. Maybe too connected. Explain. Judge Blackwell, D.A. Thornton, city council members. Pierce has his fingers in a lot of powerful pockets. Tucker opened another file. And there's something off about his finances. Transactions that don't quite make sense. Money moving in patterns that look clean on the surface but feel wrong underneath. You're saying he's dirty. I'm saying men with that kind of money and that many connections don't usually chase after ex-wives they threw away. Not unless there's a reason. Tucker leaned back in his chair, watched the 3 monitors cycle through information. I'm going to dig deeper. But Damon, if this guy is what I think he might be, him coming back for Isla could be about more than regret. Keep digging. And keep me posted. The call ended. Tucker stared at Garrett Pierce's professional photo on the screen. Yale Law, Portland, old money. The kind of pedigree that bought forgiveness for sins that would sink normal people. Then he opened another file. Thomas Webb, junior associate at Morrison and Pierce, found dead 6 months ago in his apartment, ruled a suicide. But Tucker had learned long ago that ruled and true were often different things. He picked up his phone, made a call to a number most people didn't have. Agent Warren. It's Tucker Sutherland. I've got something you might want to see about Garrett Pierce. The lawyer, what about him? I think he killed one of his associates, made it look like suicide, and I can prove it. Isla had been at the estate for a week when Damon suggested she join a support group. Thursday nights at Hope Haven, facilitated by a psychologist named Dr. Natalie Cross, focused on infertility and the emotional aftermath that nobody talked about until they had to. Isla's first instinct was refusal. She'd spent months avoiding her pain. Why volunteer to swim in it? But Damon's expression held something she recognized. The look of someone who'd been there, who'd sat in circles and told strangers things that hurt to say out loud, who'd survived it and came out stronger. Help me, he said quietly. After Lisa, PTSD group for veterans, thought I could handle it alone. Turns out talking about it was the only thing that made the nightmare stop. So Thursday at 7 p.m., Isla found herself in Hope Haven's basement. 12 chairs in a circle, 10 people already seated. Dr. Cross at 12 o'clock. Warm presence, the kind of person you instinctively trusted with your worst secrets. Welcome, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Natalie. This is a safe space. Whatever's said here stays here. No judgment, no fixing, just witnessing each other's truth. They went around the circle, sharing names, sharing stories that hurt to tell but hurt worse to keep inside. Harrison, 42, whose wife left after 5 failed IVFs and took half his retirement. Celeste, 35, hysterectomy at 28 due to cancer that saved her life but cost her dreams. Marcus, 55, and his partner, who'd wanted children but biology said no, and adoption agencies said worse. Then it was Isla's turn. I'm Isla Afane. I'm 30. I can't have children. The words came out flat. Facts, not feelings. My husband left me because of it. Ex-husband? Someone said gently. Ex-husband. Right. Isla took a breath. He said I wasn't a complete woman, that he needed a real family, and part of me believed him. Still believes him. Dr. Cross leaned forward slightly. Not pressing, just opening space. What part? The part that measures my worth by what my body can do. The part that thinks if I can't create life, I'm not fully alive. The part that feels broken every time I see pregnant women or children or families that look complete in ways I'll never be. Silence. Not uncomfortable. Witnessing. Holding space for pain. I was a kindergarten teacher. Isla's voice cracked. I loved those kids, but every day I went to work knowing I'd never have my own, that I'd spend my life raising other people's children while mine stayed imaginary. And when the depression hit, when I couldn't pretend anymore that I was okay, I lost that too. Lost the only thing that made me feel like maybe I mattered anyway. She cried then, not pretty crying, the ugly kind that came from somewhere deep and raw. The kind you couldn't control or stop until it ran out on its own. Dr. Cross handed her tissues, waited. The group waited. No one tried to fix it or make it better or say it would be okay. They just sat with her in her pain. When Isla could breathe again, the psychologist spoke. Your worth isn't in your womb, it's in your humanity, your capacity to love, to nurture, to show up even when showing up is the hardest thing you can do. She gestured around the circle. Everyone here knows what it's like to have society tell them they're less than. To have people who claim to love them walk away. But we're still here, still standing. That's not failure, that's courage. After the session, Isla stood outside Hope Haven. The December night bit at exposed skin. She wrapped her arms around herself and tried to process everything she'd felt in the past 2 hours. A motorcycle pulled up. Damon. He'd waited. Of course he'd waited. How was it? He asked as she climbed on behind him. Hard, really hard. Yeah, it usually is. They rode back to the estate in silence. But when they got there, instead of going inside, Damon led her around the house, down a path she hadn't noticed before, through trees that opened up to a lake, private, peaceful. The moon reflected on still water like a second sky. "This is where I proposed to Lisa," Damon said, standing at the edge, looking out at nothing and everything. 13 years ago, had the ring in my pocket, the speech planned, then I got the call that she'd been hit. Isla stood beside him, said nothing. Sometimes silence was the only appropriate response. I blamed myself for years if I hadn't asked her to come. If I'd gone to her instead, if I'd taken a different road. If. He picked up a stone, skipped it across the water. 3 bounces before it sank. Tucker finally got through to me, said I was carrying guilt that didn't belong to me. That drunk driver made his choice. Lisa made hers. I made mine. We don't get to control outcomes, just intentions. Do you believe that? Most days. Some days it's harder. He turned to look at her, really look. Not at her, but into her. But what I do believe is that we don't honor the people we've lost by refusing to live. We honor them by living better, by helping others, by turning pain into purpose. Isla felt something shift inside her chest, some hard knot of grief beginning to loosen. I don't know how to do that. Neither did I, still figuring it out 12 years later. But I think it starts with showing up. You showed up at Hope Haven. You showed up at group tonight. That's the beginning. They stood by the lake until the cold became too much, walked back to the house in comfortable silence. At the base of the stairs, Damon paused. I'm proud of you. Tonight took guts. Isla found herself smiling. First real smile in months. Thank you for pushing me, for waiting, for all of it. That's what we do. We show up for each other. In her room later, Isla lay in bed and thought about Dr. Cross's words, about Harrison and Celeste and Marcus, about Damon and his lake and his lost fiancée and his 12 years of keeping promises, about all the ways people found to keep going when everything said they should quit. Her phone screen lit up. Another text from Garrett. Isla, this silence is childish. We need to discuss our future. Call me. She blocked his number, turned off her phone, and slept without nightmares for the first time in months. On a Tuesday morning, 2 weeks after Isla had arrived, Garrett Pierce showed up at the estate gate. Isla was in the kitchen making coffee when the intercom buzzed. Damon answered it from his office. His voice came through the speaker system. Garrett Pierce here to see Isla Brennan. Isla's hands froze mid-pour. Her heart kicked into overdrive. Damon appeared in the kitchen doorway, phone in hand, face carefully neutral. What do you want me to do in file? He asked. I don't want to see him. Then you don't have to. But Garrett's voice came through the intercom speaker, loud enough to carry, designed to carry. Isla, I know you're there. Come out. Let's talk like adults. This is embarrassing for both of us. Damon started to respond, but Isla held up her hand. Something in her chest was hardening, crystallizing. Months of being told she was less than. Months of carrying shame that didn't belong to her. Months of letting Garrett's voice in her head define her worth. I'll talk to him, she said. You don't have to. I know, but I want to. They walked to the gate together. Garrett stood beside his Mercedes S-Class, immaculate suit, perfect hair, the picture of success and confidence and everything Isla used to think she wanted. Behind him, a man Isla didn't recognize. Expensive suit. The stance of someone used to watching and reporting. Private investigator, probably. Garrett's face lit up when he saw her, then darkened when Damon appeared beside her. Isla. Garrett's voice dripped with forced pleasantness. You look, well, what do you want, Garrett? To talk, to apologize properly, to discuss our options going forward. There are no options. We're divorced. A mistake. My mistake. I was scared. Overwhelmed. I handled it badly. He took a step closer. The gate separated them but barely. Amanda left me, Isla. She wasn't who I thought she was. But you, us, we were real. We can try again. Adoption, surrogacy, fertility treatments. Money's not an issue. Money was never the issue. Then what? This? He gestured at Damon. at the estate, at everything's. You're living with a biker? You've really fallen, haven't you? From kindergarten teacher to this? The words were meant to cut. 6 months ago they would have sliced right through to her core and made her bleed shame. Now they just made her angry. I didn't fall, Garrett. You pushed me. Then you're surprised I found someone who caught me. He's a criminal. Damon spoke for the first time. Voice quiet, controlled. The kind of quiet that was more dangerous than shouting. Careful what you accuse me of, Pierce. My businesses are clean. My taxes are current. My record's spotless. Can you say the same? Something flickered across Garrett's face. Too fast to identify clearly. But Isla saw it. Fear, maybe, or guilt. The look of someone who'd been caught but was still pretending innocence. Are you threatening me? I'm suggesting you leave my property. Isla doesn't want to talk to you. You've been told. Now you're trespassing. Garrett's expression hardened. The pleasant mask slipped. Underneath was something colder, more calculating, more like the man who'd thrown her away when she stopped being useful. This isn't over, Isla. You're making a mistake, a big one. And when you realize it, don't come crying back to me. I won't. Isla found her voice steady, strong. Because the only mistake I made was staying with you as long as I did. Believing you when you said you loved me. Thinking I was the problem when you were the problem all along. She turned and walked back toward the house. Damon followed. Behind them, Garrett's voice carried on the December wind. You'll regret this, both of you. Inside, Isla's hands started shaking. Adrenaline crash. The aftermath of confrontation. Damon guided her to a chair, got her water, sat beside her and waited while she processed what had just happened. I did it, she whispered. I stood up to him. You did. He's not going to stop. No, he's not. Damon's voice carried certainty born from experience. Men like that don't let go easy, especially when they're losing control. What do we do? We're ready. Whatever comes next, we handle it. He paused. Together. The word hung in the air. Together, not you alone, not him protecting her while she hid. Together, Isla nodded. Together. Tucker's phone rang at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, the kind of call that never brought good news. He answered on the second ring, already reaching for his jeans. Sutherland. It's deeper than we thought. The voice belonged to Special Agent Warren, FBI, White Collar Crimes Division. They'd met twice now, quietly, off the books until the case was ready. The embezzlement goes back 7 years, multiple clients, but it's not just Pierce. He's connected to Judge Blackwell, possibly D.A. Thornton. We're talking about a network. Tucker was fully awake now. How deep? Deep enough that if we move wrong, evidence disappears and people with badges start asking questions we can't answer. Warren paused. Your brother's woman, Isla. She was married to Pierce during most of this. If he thinks she knows something, or if she could testify to anything she saw, she's a kindergarten teacher. She wasn't involved. Doesn't matter what she was. Matters what Pierce thinks she might know, or what he can make a jury believe she knows. Another pause. Keep her close, Tucker. This is about to get ugly. The call ended. Tucker sat in the darkness of his apartment and thought about his brother, about the woman Damon had brought into his home and into his life, about Thomas Webb who died because he'd found evidence of crimes he couldn't prove. He made another call. To Damon. Yeah. Damon's voice came clear. Awake. He'd probably been working in his office. The man never slept normal hours. We need to talk. About Pierce, about what's coming. Come to the house. Now? Now. By the time Tucker arrived, dawn was breaking over the estate, the kind of winter sunrise that painted everything in shades of gray before color slowly bled back into the world. He found Damon in the study, coffee already made, files spread across the desk. Isla's still sleeping, Damon said. Let's keep it that way until we know what we're dealing with. Tucker laid out everything. The embezzlement, the timeline, Thomas Webb's murder disguised as suicide, Judge Blackwell's involvement, the DA's possible complicity, and the FBI's theory that Garrett Pierce viewed Isla as either a witness or a liability. Either way, a problem to be solved. He's going to come for her, Tucker concluded. Not physically, He's too smart for that, but legally, publicly, he'll try to discredit her, make her look unstable, unreliable. So if she ever does testify, no jury will believe her. Damon listened without interrupting. His face remained neutral, but Tucker knew his brother. Knew the stillness meant calculations running, strategies forming. The tactical mind that had kept Marines alive in Bosnia and Iraq now focused on a different kind of battlefield. What does the FBI need? Damon asked. Time, evidence. They're building a case, but it takes months, maybe years. Tucker leaned forward. In the meantime, Pierce is going to attack. We need to be ready. What's his most likely move? Hope Haven. He can't attack Isla directly without looking vindictive, but he can attack your charity. Raise questions about finances, about your associations. Tucker gestured at the Hells Angels vest hanging by the door. He'll use the club, make it seem like you're laundering money or running some kind of criminal enterprise. Let him try. The books are clean, every dollar accounted for. Doesn't matter if it's true, matters if people believe it, and Pierce is good at making people believe things. Tucker's jaw tightened. He convinced a whole firm that Thomas Webb was a thief, convinced the police his suicide was legitimate. He's got reach, resources, connections we can't match in those circles. Damon stood, walked to the window, watched the lake in the distance turning from black to silver as light hit the water. We don't match his resources. We match his will. He turned back to Tucker. He wants a fight. We give him one, but we do it smart. We use what he thinks are our weaknesses as strengths. The club, Hope Haven, Isla. Everything he sees as vulnerability, we turn into armor. How? By being exactly what we are, transparent, open, honest. A thin smile crossed Damon's face. And by making sure when he swings at us, he hits nothing but air. Tucker recognized that look, had seen it before combat operations, before difficult missions, the look of a man who'd made peace with whatever came next. Viper needs to know, Tucker said, if Pierce goes after the club. Already planning to brief him today. This affects all of us. The brothers deserve to know what's coming. Footsteps on the stairs. Both men looked toward the door. Isla appeared, wrapped in a robe, hair mussed from sleep, eyes still heavy. She took in Tucker's presence. The files on the desk. The tension in the room. What's happening? Damon moved to her. Didn't touch, just stood close, offering presence without crowding. Garrett's in trouble. Legal trouble. Tucker's been investigating. He paused. It's bad, Isla. Worse than we thought, and he might try to use you to get out of it. She absorbed this, blinked sleep from her eyes. When she spoke, her voice came steady, stronger than Tucker expected. Tell me everything. The Hells Angels clubhouse at 10 a.m. on a Saturday held maybe 30 brothers. Full church, everyone present. Viper at the head of the table. Damon standing to address the room. Tucker beside him with his investigation files. Some of you know I've been helping a woman, Damon began. Isla Brennan. She needed shelter. I provided it. That's what we do. We help people. Nods around the room. No judgment. Just acknowledgement. Her ex-husband is a lawyer named Garrett Pierce, 34, senior partner at Morrison and Pierce. Tucker's investigation shows Pierce is dirty, embezzlement, maybe murder, definitely corruption, and he's connected. Judges, DA, city officials. Damon let that sink in. He's going to come after me. After Hope Haven, maybe after the club, to get to her, to silence her, to protect himself. What does he think she knows? This from Wrench. Practical, always focused on the mechanics of problems. Doesn't matter, he was married to her during the embezzlement. In his mind, she's a potential witness or a liability. Damon's jaw tightened, and I gave my word she's under my protection. Silence. Then Viper spoke. You asking for club backing? I'm informing the club. This is my fight, but it might splash on all of us. You deserve to know what's coming. You gave your word. Viper's statement carried the weight of judgment rendered. That makes it our fight. We back our brothers. Always. He looked around the table. Vote. All in favor of full club support for Reaper's protection of this woman. Every hand went up. No hesitation. No dissent. Brotherhood wasn't just a word. It was a promise reinforced by action. Motion carries. Viper turned to Damon. Whatever you need, whoever you need, we're there. Phoenix stood, the former lawyer turned counselor. I'll start documenting everything. Every interaction with Pierce, every threat, every move. We build our own case alongside the FBI's. I've got surveillance equipment, Wrench added. Cameras, mics, legal stuff. We make sure everything's recorded. Prospects can run protection rotation. This from Chains, Sergeant at Arms, the enforcer. Someone always watching the estate, the center, wherever she goes. Damon nodded, accepting the help the way you accepted ammunition before a firefight. Necessary, expected, appreciated. One more thing, Tucker said, standing. Pierce is smart. He won't come at us directly. He'll use proxies, anonymous tips, media, city officials. We need to be ready for a public relations war, not just a legal one. Then we win both wars. Viper's voice carried finality. Because we've got something Pierce doesn't have. We've got the truth, and we've got each other. The attack came 2 days later. Anonymous tip to a local news outlet. Questions raised about Hope Haven Community Center's finances. Suggestions of money laundering through charitable donations. Photos of Damon with known Hells Angels members. Insinuations about vulnerable women being exploited under the guise of help. By Tuesday morning, it was the lead story on 3 news channels. Isla watched from the estate's living room, remote in hand, cycling through coverage that made her stomach turn. Every report showed the same photos, the same questions, the same barely concealed suggestion that something sinister was happening behind Hope Haven's charitable facade. They're destroying everything you built, she whispered. Damon stood at the window, watching, thinking. His phone had been ringing nonstop. Donors calling to express concern. City officials requesting meetings. The local business association asking for statements. They're trying to destroy it, he corrected. Whether they succeed depends on how we respond. How do we respond to lies? With truth, loudly, publicly, completely. He turned from the window. There's a city council meeting Thursday. Public comment period. Hope Haven's license renewal is on the agenda. They moved it up from next month. Pierce is doing. He's forcing a fight in public where he thinks we'll fold. What if they don't believe us? Then we make them believe us, with facts, with testimonials, with every family we've helped standing up and telling their stories. His voice carried certainty. Pierce thinks the club is our weakness, our criminal connection. He's wrong. The club is our strength. Brotherhood, loyalty, keeping our word. Those aren't criminal values. They're the values that built this country. Tucker burst through the door, no knock, moving fast. We've got a problem. Judge Blackwell just issued a welfare check warrant for Isla. Says he's received reports she's being held against her will. That's insane, Isla said. Doesn't matter. Social services is on their way. They'll interview you, inspect the house, look for signs of coercion. Tucker's face was grim. This is Pierce's opening move. He's establishing a narrative. Vulnerable woman, dangerous biker, suspicious circumstances. Let them come. Damon's voice stayed calm. The house is clean. Isla's free to leave anytime. They won't find anything because there's nothing to find. It's not about what they find. It's about what they report finding. Tucker pulled out his phone, started recording. We document everything, every question, every inspection, every word. Nothing happens off record. The social worker arrived 20 minutes later. Stella Montgomery, 50-something, professional. The kind of person who'd seen too much tragedy to be easily shocked, but still cared enough to do the job right. She interviewed Isla alone, asked direct questions about her living situation, about Damon, about whether she felt safe, free, coerced in any way. Isla answered honestly, told the story of the diner, of Damon's help, of finding purpose at Hope Haven, of Garrett's attempts to reconcile and her refusal. Stella listened, took notes, inspected the house, saw the guest room with its separate lock, the car keys freely available, the evidence of a person living independently rather than being held captive. Ms. Brennan, Stella said finally, I'm required to file a report, but for what it's worth, I see no evidence of coercion. You appear to be making your own choices, living your own life. I am. Then that's what my report will say. Stella closed her notebook, looked at Damon, who'd remained in the background. Mr. Sutherland, you have a reputation, some of it deserved, some of it not. But whatever people say about you, what you've built at Hope Haven is real. It helps people. Don't let them take that away. After she left, Tucker stopped recording. That's one battle. More coming. Let them come, Damon said. We're ready. Thursday night, Portland City Hall, council chambers packed beyond capacity. Press in the back, cameras rolling, every seat filled and people standing along the walls. Hope Haven's license renewal had drawn a crowd. Some supporters, more who'd come to watch a spectacle. The kind of public bloodletting that passed for civic engagement. Damon sat in the front row, Isla beside him, Tucker on her other side. Behind them, 20 Hells Angels in their vests, clean, sober, silent. A show of solidarity that made several council members visibly uncomfortable. Garrett Pierce sat 3 rows back. Expensive suit, confident smile. Next to him, a man Isla recognized as Morrison, senior partner. Between them, stacks of documents, ready to present their case against everything Damon had built. The council chairman, a tired-looking man named Reynolds, called the meeting to order. Item 14, Hope Haven Community Center license renewal. The floor is open for public comment. Morrison stood first, presented the case against renewal with the smooth efficiency of a man who'd done this 1,000 times. Questions about financial oversight, about the facility's management, about documented concerns regarding the people running the center and their connections to organized crime. This isn't about whether Hope Haven does good work, Morrison concluded. It's about whether it does that work within appropriate guidelines, whether it maintains proper separation between legitimate charity and potentially problematic associations. Then it was Damon's turn. He stood, walked to the podium, looked out at the crowd, at the cameras, at the council members who'd known him for years through his businesses, but were seeing him now through the lens of suspicion. My name is Damon Sutherland. I built Hope Haven 12 years ago with my fiance's life insurance money. She died in a car accident. Last words she said to me were, "Help people like us." I've been keeping that promise ever since. He pulled out a folder, set it on the podium with deliberate care. These are our financial records. Every dollar received, every dollar spent. 12 years of clean audits, 12 years of serving this community, 200 families annually, food assistance, job training, mental health services, all documented, all transparent, all available for inspection by anyone who asks. He looked directly at Morrison, at Pierce. Some people have raised questions about my associations, about the Hells Angels, about whether a motorcycle club member can run a legitimate charity. He paused. I'm not going to apologize for brotherhood, for loyalty, for keeping my word to people who need help. Those aren't criminal values. Those are the values that matter. Movement in the crowd, Delilah stood, Marcus, other families who'd been helped by Hope Haven. One by one, they rose like witnesses in a trial. I'd like to speak, Delilah said. Reynolds nodded. The floor recognizes Ms. Monroe. Delilah walked to the front, nervous but determined, the kind of courage that comes from having nothing left to lose. Hope Haven saved my life. Literally, I was living in my car with 3 kids after leaving an abusive husband. No money, no hope, no options left. Her voice strengthened. Mr. Sutherland didn't judge me, didn't make me prove I deserved help. He just helped. Now I have an apartment, a job, my kids are in school, we're rebuilding. Her voice cracked. You shut down Hope Haven. You're telling people like me we don't deserve second chances. Marcus spoke next, then others. 15 testimonials, 15 stories of lives changed, of families helped, of hope restored when hope seemed impossible. When they finished, Reynolds called for council discussion. The debate lasted 20 minutes. Some members raised concerns, others defended the center. Finally, a vote, 7-2, license renewed. Relief washed through the crowd. Supporters cheered. The Angels remained silent, but Damon saw satisfaction in their faces. They'd stood together. They'd won this battle. But Garrett Pierce didn't look defeated. He looked calm, almost pleased, like a chess player who just sacrificed a pawn to position his queen. And Damon realized with cold certainty that this had never been the real fight, just the opening move in a longer game. The arrest warrant was executed at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning. 15 officers, full tactical gear. As if Damon Sutherland, former Marine who'd never been arrested, who'd cooperated with law enforcement his entire adult life, posed some kind of flight risk or danger. Isla woke to the sound of boots on stairs, shouting. Damon's calm voice saying he was complying. Coming out, hands visible, she reached the hallway in time to see them cuffing him. Reading rights, felony intimidation of a witness, harassment, obstruction of justice, all related to Constance Webb, Thomas Webb's mother who Tucker had been talking to. I didn't threaten anyone, Damon said. Calm, controlled. The Marine discipline holding even now. Save it for your lawyer. The lead officer, a Lieutenant Damon knew from community outreach programs, looked genuinely apologetic. Sorry, Sutherland. Orders came from high up. They took him out in handcuffs. Press already gathering at the end of the driveway like vultures. Cameras catching every moment. The image they wanted. Criminal in custody. Justice served. Isla stood in the doorway, shaking. Tucker appeared beside her. Call Phoenix. Tell him to get the lawyer. And stay here. Don't talk to anyone. Don't go anywhere. You're safe as long as you're on the property. They arrested him for nothing. They arrested him because Pierce is desperate. Damon getting close to the truth means Pierce needs to neutralize him. Tucker's jaw set, but they made a mistake. You don't arrest a man who's been preparing for this. What do you mean? I mean, Damon knew this was coming. We all did, and we've been ready. The preliminary hearing was set for Monday, 48 hours away. Damon spent them in county jail. Refused bail because the judge, a colleague of Blackwell's, deemed him a flight risk despite zero evidence supporting that conclusion. Isla visited Sunday afternoon, sat across from him in the visiting room, a phone and glass between them. The indignity of it made her want to scream. This is my fault, she said into the phone. No, his voice came through clear, absolute. This is Pierce's fault, his crime, his desperation, his choice to drag you into it. If I'd never gotten in your car, then you'd be dead or worse, and I'd still be living like a ghost. He leaned closer to the glass. Listen to me, Isla. Whatever happens next, you did nothing wrong. You're not responsible for the actions of scared men trying to hide their crimes. What do I do? Trust Tucker. And when this is over, we're going to build something better than anything Pierce tried to destroy. The guard called time. Isla pressed her hand against the glass. Damon matched it from his side. For a moment they stayed like that, connected by transparency, separated by injustice. Then he was gone. Monday morning, courthouse steps, protesters with signs, some supporting Damon, more calling for justice against corruption, though many seemed confused about which side represented which. Tucker met Isla at a side entrance. This is going to get ugly, he warned. Pierce's lawyer will paint Damon as a criminal who threatened a grieving mother. Our lawyer will expose Pierce's embezzlement, both sides throwing bombs. You need to be ready. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Damon sat at the defense table in County Orange. The indignity of it burned, but his face remained neutral, composed. The Marine who'd faced worse. The prosecution presented their case. Constance Webb had received threatening calls, visits from dangerous men, all designed to silence her about her son's supposed suicide. Evidence pointed to Damon Sutherland coordinating this intimidation campaign. Except when the defense presented their evidence, the story changed. Constance Webb herself took the stand, 63 years old, backbone of steel forged in grief. Mr. Sutherland never threatened me. He offered to help me, to investigate my son's death. Because unlike the police, unlike the district attorney, unlike everyone else with power, he believed me when I said Thomas was innocent. The prosecution objected. The judge sustained. But the message landed like a punch in the courtroom. Then Phoenix, the club's former lawyer, played recordings. Every conversation between Tucker and Constance, every meeting, every interview, all documented, all showing investigation, not intimidation. The prosecutor tried to recover, suggested the recordings were fabricated, tampered. But the forensic analysis showed otherwise. Everything was legitimate. Everything was real. Still, the judge ruled. Bail denied. Trial set for 30 days out. Damon would remain in custody. As they led him away, Damon caught Isla's eyes. Mouthed words she could read clearly. Trust me. She didn't understand. Outside the courthouse, Garrett Pierce stood before cameras. Triumphant. Speaking about justice. About protecting the vulnerable. About standing up to organized crime disguised as charity. Tucker pulled Isla away before she could hear more. Led her to his Jeep. Drove in silence to his office above the gun range. I don't understand, Isla said. We had evidence. We showed he's innocent. We showed reasonable doubt about some charges. But the judge is in Pierce's pocket. This was never about justice in that courtroom. Tucker pulled out his phone, called a number, put it on speaker. Agent Warren, it's time, Tucker said. You sure? Once we move, there's no going back. We're sure. Pierce thinks he's won. That makes him vulnerable. Hit him now. Roger that. Warrants are ready. FBI will execute at 0600 tomorrow. All targets simultaneously. The call ended. Tucker looked at Isla. Damon's arrest was bait, made Pierce overconfident, made him move pieces into positions where we could see them, where the FBI could document everything. He pulled up files on his computer. We've been working with the feds for 6 weeks, building a case against Pierce, Blackwell, half the DA's office. Embezzlement, bribery, obstruction, murder. Thomas Webb. Thomas Webb. And Pierce, thinking he'd silence Damon, just gave us the last piece we needed, his arrogance. Tuesday morning, 6 a.m., FBI raids across Portland, Morrison and Pierce Law, Judge Blackwell's chambers, DA Thornton's home office, Garrett Pierce's penthouse downtown. Simultaneous, coordinated, overwhelming. They found everything: 7 years of embezzled funds, offshore accounts, falsified documents, and in Garrett Pierce's home safe, behind a false panel, they found Thomas Webb's laptop, the real one, with all the evidence the young lawyer had compiled before he was murdered. By 10 a.m., Garrett Pierce was in federal custody, charged with embezzlement, bribery, witness tampering, and murder. No bail, flight risk, danger to the community, all the things they'd said about Damon, but actually meant. By noon, an emergency hearing was convened for Damon's case. New judge, Lawrence Hartford, 68 years old, reputation for fairness that both sides respected. He reviewed the evidence, reviewed the FBI's findings, looked at the prosecution with barely concealed disgust. These charges against Mr. Sutherland appear to have been fabricated as part of a conspiracy to obstruct justice and silence witnesses against Mr. Pierce. Motion to dismiss with prejudice granted. Mr. Sutherland, you're free to go. The courtroom erupted, supporters cheering, press scrambling for quotes. Damon walked out in the same orange jumpsuit he'd worn in, met Isla at the courthouse entrance. She ran to him, he caught her, held her while cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions. You knew, she said against his chest. You knew this whole time. Suspected, hoped, but yeah, we knew Pierce would overplay his hand if we gave him the chance. He pulled back, looked at her. Sometimes you have to lose a battle to win a war. Outside, 30 Hells Angels waited, bikes lined up, brothers ready to ride home. Viper approached, clasped Damon's hand with the grip that meant brotherhood. Good to have you back, Reaper. Good to be back. They rode through Portland. Slow roll, respecting traffic laws, no show of force, just brotherhood, solidarity, the image they wanted. Not criminals, brothers. They stopped at Hope Haven, where the real work waited, where lives needed changing and promises needed keeping, where Damon had built something that mattered more than any courthouse victory. 2 days after Garrett's arrest, Tucker called Isla. Coffee? His voice carried something she hadn't heard before. Warmth, maybe. Acceptance earned through fire. They met at a quiet cafe in Northeast Portland. Tucker was already there, 2 cups waiting. Black for him, latte for her. He'd remembered from a conversation weeks ago. I owe you an apology, he said without preamble. A real one. You already apologized. When you ran the background check. That was for suspecting you. This is for being an ass about it. He smiled, rare for Tucker. You're good for him, Isla. Hell, you're good for all of us. Isla felt her throat tighten. Tucker's approval mattered more than she'd realized. This man who'd protected Damon for decades, who'd lost parents young, who'd built walls around his brother to keep him safe from the world and from himself. Thank you, she managed. That means everything. Tucker slid something across the table. A photo album, old, leather-bound, worn from years of careful storage. Damon and Lisa, their photos. I kept them after she died because he couldn't look at them without breaking. But I think he'd want you to know her, to understand what she meant, what you mean now. Isla opened the album with trembling hands. Lisa at 24, blonde, smiling, alive in ways photographs could barely capture. Damon beside younger, less weathered by loss. Happy in a way Isla was just beginning to see again in his eyes. She'd have liked you, Tucker said quietly. She'd have understood what you're doing for him, how you're helping him live again instead of just existing. I'm not replacing her. No, you're not. You're building something new, something that honors what was while creating what is. Tucker finished his coffee. Welcome to the family, sister. For real this time. They talked for another hour. About Damon, about the case, about the future that suddenly seemed possible again. When they parted, Isla felt something she hadn't expected. She'd gained not just a man she loved, but a brother who'd protect her as fiercely as he protected Damon. 3 weeks before the wedding, Viper called a special church meeting. Full attendance required. Isla didn't know why she'd been invited until she arrived and saw the setup. A chair in the center of the room, brothers standing in a circle around it, serious faces, ceremonial posture, the weight of tradition and meaning. Isla Brennan. Viper's voice carried authority earned through decades of leadership. Soon to be Isla Sutherland. Come forward. Damon squeezed her hand, released it. Let her walk to the center alone. She sat in the chair, heart pounding, surrounded by 30 Hell's Angels in full vest. We don't do this often, Viper continued, bringing outsiders into our world, into our brotherhood. But you've proven yourself worthy. Wrench stepped forward, held a leather vest, smaller than the men's, but real, official, the kind you didn't get unless you earned it. When Reaper was arrested, you stood strong, Wrench said. Didn't run, didn't hide, didn't fold under pressure. Phoenix was next. When our brother faced false charges, you fought beside us, trusted our plan even when it looked hopeless, kept faith when faith was hard. One by one, brothers spoke, testified to her strength, her loyalty, her worthiness of the protection they offered. Finally, Viper held up the vest, patches already sewn with care and precision. This is yours, not a full member vest. You're not a rider, but your family, and we mark our family. He showed the patches. Property of Reaper, top rocker. Guardian Angel, center patch, hand design in Portland chapter bottom rocker. You guarded our brother's heart when he thought it was dead. You're his guardian angel. Now you're ours too. Damon helped her into the vest. It settled on her shoulders like armor, like acceptance, like home she'd never expected to find. The brothers didn't cheer, didn't make noise. They simply stepped forward, one by one, and clasped her hand. The grip that meant brotherhood. That meant, we've got your back. Always. When it was done, Viper raised his fist. To Isla, guardian angel, sister of the road. 30 fists raised in response, a promise made without words. That night, wearing her vest in the estate's kitchen, Isla caught her reflection in the window. Kindergarten teacher turned biker family. The woman who'd counted change at a diner now standing equal among men who'd terrified her 6 months ago. Looks good on you, Damon said from the doorway. Feels good on me. You earned it. We earned it. Together. 3 months after Damon's arrest and vindication, the lake returned to being a place of peace rather than memory. Isla stood at the water's edge, watching dawn paint the world in shades of gold and pink. March in Oregon meant possibility, the kind of spring that suggested winter hadn't won, that life continued and thrived despite everything. She heard Damon's boots on the path behind her, knew his footstep without looking. The way you learned the rhythms of people you lived with, loved, built futures with. Thought I'd find you here, he said. It's peaceful. I understand why you proposed to Lisa here. He stood beside her, close but not crowding. They'd developed their own language over the months, of presence in space, support in independence, partnership. Isla. Something in his tone made her turn. He was holding a box, small, velvet, the kind that held one thing only. 13 years ago, I came to this lake planning to propose, to build a future, to make promises I intended to keep forever. He opened the box. Simple platinum band, single emerald, her birthstone. Lisa's death taught me that forever is a risk, that promises can be broken by forces outside our control, but also that the risk is worth taking. He knelt, not because tradition demanded it, because the moment demanded it, because some promises deserve to be made from a position of humility. I don't know what forever looks like. Can't promise we'll get 60 years or 6, but I can promise that however many days I get, I'll spend them keeping my word to you, protecting you, standing beside you, building a life that matters. His eyes met hers. Isla Catherine Brennan, will you let me keep that promise? Will you marry me? She dropped to her knees, met him at eye level the way she should have the first time in the diner, equal, partners building something together. Yes, but I want to make a promise too. She took his hands. I promise to show you that love isn't just about protection. It's about partnership, about being strong enough to let each other be vulnerable, about building something together that's bigger than what either of us could build alone. They kissed while the sun came up, while the lake reflected their future back to them in ripples and light, while the world turned and life continued its forward momentum. The wedding was held at Hope Haven in mid-April when Portland finally remembered what warmth felt like. Isla wore ivory, simple, elegant, tea-length. Lisa's pearl earrings borrowed from Tucker, who'd kept them safe all these years. Something old, something borrowed. The rest didn't matter because she was surrounded by family chosen rather than given. Damon wore black, suit jacket over his Hells Angels vest, Marine Corps pin on his lapel. All the pieces of who he was represented without apology. Tucker walked Isla down the aisle between folding chairs set up in Hope Haven's garden. Marcus, the veteran who'd been homeless and was now housed and helping others, officiated, ordained online but genuine in spirit and intention. On Damon's side, 20 Hells Angels in dress vests, leather polished, patches proud, brothers standing witness to a promise being made. On Isla's side, Delilah and her kids, Sarah from Hope Haven, Emma who'd flown from Seattle to rebuild their relationship brick by brick, Stella Montgomery, the social worker who'd seen past appearances to truth, Dr. Natalie Cross from the support group, all the people who'd seen Isla at her lowest and helped her rise. Marcus spoke about second chances, about finding family where you least expected it, about promises that mattered more than contracts or biology or conventional wisdom. Then the vows. Damon went first. Isla, 6 months ago you walked into my life in a storm, literally and figuratively. I thought I was saving you from drowning. Turns out you saved me from something worse, from living like a ghost, from thinking that keeping promises to the dead meant giving up on promises to the living. He took her hands. I promise to protect you, but also to let you protect me, to stand beside you, not in front of you, to build a family with you in whatever form that takes. You're my second chance at life, my completion. I love you beyond measure and beyond words. Isla's turn, her voice steady despite tears. Damon, you found me when I'd given up, not just on love, on myself, on the idea that I had value beyond what my body could or couldn't do. Tears came, but her voice stayed strong. You showed me that worth is measured in what we give, not what we can produce. In how we show up for others, not in checking biological boxes society hands us. She squeezed his hands. I promise to nurture our community, our chosen family, to remind you daily that you deserve love, that Lisa would be proud of who you've become, that we're building something beautiful on foundations of pain that's been transformed into purpose. You're my home, my miracle. I love you completely and without reservation. Marcus smiled through his own tears. By the power vested in me by the great state of Oregon and by the brotherhood of the road, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." They did, while the angels revved engines in celebration. While families cheered, while cameras captured a moment that proved happy endings came in forms you couldn't predict when the story began. The reception lasted into evening. Barbecue, beer, dancing. The kind of celebration that mixed formal and informal until the categories didn't matter, and joy was the only requirement. Tucker stood, raised his glass. Best man speech time. I'm not good with words. Actions, more my style. But Damon asked me to say something, so here goes. He looked at Isla with something like affection. My brother died 12 years ago, not physically, but the man who laughed, who loved, who lived. That man died on Highway 26 with Lisa. What walked around after was a ghost keeping promises to the dead. Tucker's voice roughened with emotion. Then this woman shows up, soaked, broken, lost, counting change she didn't have for food she couldn't afford. And somehow saving her saved him, brought him back to life, made him remember that promises to the living matter just as much as promises to the dead. He raised his glass higher. Isla, your family now. We protect our own. Welcome home, sister. The angels banged tables in approval. The sound of solidarity. Emma stood next, maid of honor, tears already streaming down her face. I failed my sister, direct, no softening, no excuses. When she needed me most, when Garrett destroyed her, when she lost everything, I wasn't there. I let my own problems become an excuse to abandon her when she needed family most. She looked at Isla. I can't undo that. Can't take back the months you suffered alone. But I can be here now. I can watch you marry a man who saw your worth when you couldn't see it yourself and when I failed to show it to you. I can be the sister I should have been all along. She turned to Damon. You kept her alive. You gave her hope. You showed her she wasn't broken, just wounded and healing. There aren't words big enough for that kind of gift. So I'll just say, thank you. And if you ever hurt her, Tucker won't have to handle you. I will. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Good laughter. The kind that comes from love. Viper stood last, unofficial grandfather of the celebration, patriarch of the brotherhood. 40 years in this club, seen a lot of riders come and go, seen a lot of old ladies and partners, but I've never seen two people save each other the way these two did. He gestured at Damon and Isla with his glass. That's what real love is. Not finding someone perfect, finding someone whose broken pieces fit with yours, building something beautiful from wreckage and pain and determination. His weathered face split into a rare smile. To Reaper and his guardian angel, may your road be long, your storms be few, and your promise be forever. Forever, the crowd roared as one voice. 6 weeks after the wedding, Stella Montgomery brought Sophie and Leo to the Sutherland estate. The kids climbed out of the social services van, carrying garbage bags with their belongings, everything they owned, everything they were, 7 and 5 years old respectively. Old enough to have been hurt, young enough to maybe still heal. Isla and Damon stood on the front steps, not crowding, giving the children space to process, to decide if this place was safe or just another stop before the next disappointment. Sophie held Leo's hand, protective, the way older siblings learned to be when adults proved unreliable. She looked at the mansion, at Damon's size, at Isla's welcoming expression with eyes that had learned to distrust kindness. Is this real? Sophie asked, 7 years old and already a skeptic. Stella knelt down. It's real, sweetheart. These are good people. They want to take care of you. People always say that. Sophie's voice carried the weight of promises broken too many times. Then they changed their mind. Damon crouched, bringing himself to eye level with both children. You're right to be skeptical. Adults have let you down before. I get that. So I'm not going to promise this is forever, can't control the future, and won't lie about it. But I can promise that while you're here, you're safe, you're fed, you're protected, and you're allowed to be kids without worrying about adult problems. Leo stepped forward, still holding his sister's hand like a lifeline. You're really big. Are you scary? Only to bad guys who hurt people. To you, I'm just a guy who makes terrible pancakes and knows too much about motorcycles. I like motorcycles, Leo whispered. hope creeping into his voice. Then we'll get along fine. They moved into the guest rooms, two of them, connected by a bathroom. Space to be in, space to be separate. Whatever they needed when they needed it. The first week was harder than either Damon or Isla admitted out loud to each other. Sophie tested boundaries constantly, spilled juice accidentally, woke up screaming from nightmares that left her shaking, asked every morning with heartbreaking consistency, "When are we leaving?" Leo was quieter, watched everything with eyes too old for his age, flinched at sudden movements. Hoarded food in his room until Isla found crackers hidden in his pillowcase and under his mattress. "Why are you keeping these?" she asked gently one afternoon, sitting on his bed. "In case there's no breakfast tomorrow." Matter of fact, practiced answer learned from hunger. "There will always be breakfast here, Leo. Always food. You don't have to hide it." That's what they said at the last place. His voice held no accusation, just fact. Isla's heart broke. "I know, adults have let you down, so I'm not asking you to believe me right now. I'm asking you to test me. Wake up tomorrow, check if there's breakfast. Do it every day for as long as you need. Eventually, you'll see I mean it." 3 weeks in, Sophie had her first real breakdown. Screaming, throwing things, years of fear and anger erupting like a volcano that had been building pressure. Damon let her rage, stayed close but didn't restrain, didn't try to stop the storm. When she exhausted herself, collapsed crying on the floor with nothing left, he sat beside her. Not touching, just present. "You're allowed to be angry," he said quietly. "Allowed to be scared. Allowed to not trust us. This house, me and Isla, we're not going anywhere, even when you're angry, even when you test us. We stay. That's what family means." "You're not my family," defiant even in tears. "Not yet, but we're working on it, one day at a time." It took 6 months before Sophie called them mom and dad, 9 months before Leo stopped hoarding food like a squirrel preparing for winter, a year before either child really believed this was permanent and safe and home. But they got there, one day at a time, one promise kept after another, until the days added up to a life built on trust earned slowly and carefully. 2 years later, December 2027, Rosie's diner looked exactly the same. Same flickering sign, same worn booths. Same sense of existing outside time while the world rushed past its windows. Isla and Damon walked in at 11 p.m. on a cold December night. Sophie and Leo were safe with Tucker for the evening. Annual tradition. Uncle duty. Giving the parents time alone together. They slid into the corner booth. The same one where Isla had sat counting change 2 years ago. Where everything had started, Bob approached. Older now, more tired, but still working because some people worked until they couldn't anymore. "Coffee?" "Please," Damon said. They ordered burgers, sat in comfortable silence while Bob shuffled away. The diner held maybe 5 other customers, late shift workers, travelers, the lonely and the lost who found themselves here in the small hours. 2 years, Isla said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Hard to believe it's only been 2 years. Best 2 years of my life. Even counting the arrest, especially counting the arrest. Led to Pierce going to prison for 18 years. Led to us adopting Sophie and Leo. Led to Hope Haven doubling in size. Led to this." He gestured between them. "All of it, worth every hard moment." The bell above the door chimed. A young woman walked in, maybe 25, wet from rain, carrying a backpack that looked too heavy for her thin frame. She sat at the counter, pulled out coins, started counting with shaking hands. Damon watched, recognition in his eyes, not of the woman, of the situation repeating itself. Bob approached her. The conversation played out with familiar beats. "Not enough money. Sorry, this isn't charity. Either pay or leave." Damon stood, walked to the counter, laid down $50. "That covers hers and mine. Keep the change." The woman looked up, fear mixed with desperate hope warring in her eyes. Why, mate?" she asked, the question everyone asked when kindness came unexpected. "Because someone did it for me once. Now I'm passing it forward." He pulled a business card from his wallet. Hope Haven's card. "We help people get back on their feet. No judgment, no requirements. Just help when you are ready for it." The woman took the card with trembling fingers. stared at it like it might disappear. Back at the booth, Isla smiled at him with love and pride mixed together. You can't save everyone. No, but I can help the ones in front of me. That's what matters. That's all any of us can do. They finished their meal, drove home to the estate where Sophie and Leo would be waiting in the morning, where Hope Haven would open its doors to another week of families needing help, where the life they'd built from broken pieces continued growing stronger. As they pulled into the driveway, Isla looked at the house, their home, filled with children's laughter and second chances and promises kept daily. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For stopping that night, for helping a stranger, for keeping your word when you could have walked away. Damon parked, killed the engine, turned to face her in the darkness. A man's only as good as his word. The Marines taught me that. The club reinforced it. But you showed me what it really means. Not just keeping promises to the dead, but making new promises to the living. Building a future that honors the past without being trapped by it. They walked into the house together. Partners, family, two people who'd found each other in a storm and built something beautiful from the wreckage of their separate pasts. Behind them, Portland slept. Hope Haven waited for tomorrow. New challenges would come. New people needing help. New promises to keep. But tonight they were home, and that was enough. That was everything.